The bitter cold of the early morning air cut through the silence of the nearly empty train station. In the center of the platform, a lone dog stood, his fur damp from the mist rising from the pavement. His body was tense, his eyes fixed on the tracks as though he was waiting for something, or someone. But the station was nearly empty, and no one expected anything unusual. It wasn't long before the workers started to notice. Every day, for weeks, this dog had appeared at the station. And every day, he stood in the same spot, watching the train arrivals, never straying far from his post. The workers tried everything, offering him food, water, and even attempting to guide him away. But the dog refused to budge. His loyalty to the platform was unquestionable. He was a German shepherd, his fur dark and thick, and his eyes held a story, one that no one could quite understand. Michael, one of the station workers, had become particularly intrigued by the dog. He had watched him every day, noting his dedication and unusual behavior. There was something deeply moving about it, but also something unsettling. "I wonder who he's waiting for," Michael would often say to Sarah, his colleague. Sarah, usually the more pragmatic of the two, could never explain it. She thought maybe the dog had been abandoned, but there was always a sense that this wasn't just about loneliness. As the days passed, Michael and Sarah grew more concerned. The dog's refusal to leave the station had become a matter of fascination, but also a mystery. What could be keeping him here? And why had he refused to move, even when the station was nearly deserted? One cold morning, something shifted. The train station was buzzing with the usual crowd of commuters, but the dog was still there, waiting. Sarah was working the ticket counter when she noticed him standing still, staring intently at the tracks. Her eyes followed his gaze, expecting nothing more than the usual routine of his silent vigil. But then something caught her eye. A figure in the distance, a figure that seemed oddly familiar. A woman struggling to carry a large suitcase slowly made her way to the platform. It was then that the dog reacted. With a sudden burst of energy, the German shepherd bolted forward, his powerful legs driving him forward in a rush of excitement. Sarah blinked in disbelief as the dog reached the woman, wagging his tail furiously, almost as if he had been waiting for her all this time. The woman's face softened, and she dropped the suitcase with a thud. She bent down to meet the dog, and in that moment, Sarah could see tears welling up in the woman's eyes. The workers froze, unsure of what to make of this. Michael, who had been watching from the other end of the platform, approached cautiously. The woman's face lit up as the dog licked her cheek in greeting, his tail wagging so hard it nearly knocked her over. "I never thought I'd see you again," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Sarah approached the scene, trying to make sense of what was happening. She noticed the way the woman held the dog, her hands gently caressing his fur as if they were reunited after years apart. She looked up at Sarah and Michael, her eyes brimming with tears. "I'm sorry," the woman said, choking back a sob. "This dog, he's been waiting for me for over a year. He never gave up." The realization hit Sarah and Michael like a thunderclap. This wasn't a stray dog. It was a dog that had been waiting for his owner, day after day, after being separated from her for a year. The woman explained that she had been deployed overseas for military service, and she had been unable to take the dog with her. She had said goodbye to him at the train station all those months ago, promising that she would return. But as the months dragged on, the dog never gave up on his promise to wait for her. Michael's throat tightened, and Sarah felt the tears welling up in her own eyes. The story was both heart-wrenching and beautiful. This dog, driven by nothing more than love and loyalty, had kept vigil day after day in the same spot, waiting for the return of his owner. The bond they shared was so pure, so unbreakable, that it transcended time, distance, and the hardships of life. As the woman hugged the dog, the workers could only watch in awe. This was more than just a reunion. This was a testament to the power of love, the kind of devotion that humans could only hope to experience in their own lives. The woman, still holding the dog tightly, turned to Sarah and Michael, her voice trembling. "He's been here every day, hasn't he?" Michael nodded. "Every day." She looked at the dog with a mixture of disbelief and gratitude. "I don't know how he knew, but he waited. And I knew he'd be here. I promised him I'd come back." As the dog looked up at her with those intelligent, loving eyes, Sarah felt a lump in her throat. It was as if the dog knew, deep down, that this was the moment he had been waiting for. The moment when the two would finally be reunited. But as the reunion unfolded, a deeper realization set in. The woman, who had been away serving her country, had faced the harshest of challenges. The long months without her dog had been filled with sorrow and loneliness. There were days when she wondered if she'd ever return, but she always held on to the belief that her loyal companion would be waiting for her. And now, standing in the midst of this emotional reunion, she understood the depth of the bond they had shared all along. The dog had never given up on her, just as she had never given up on him. "He's more than a pet," the woman continued, wiping her tears as the dog licked her face. "He's family. My best friend. He kept me going while I was away. Every letter I sent home, I would ask how he was doing. I always knew he'd be here. He never stopped waiting." As the woman shared her story, Michael and Sarah's hearts swelled with emotion. They had seen many things at the train station, but nothing had ever touched them quite like this. They couldn't help but feel the overwhelming power of love, loyalty, and hope that radiated from the woman and her dog. The woman finally stood up, still holding her dog close. "Thank you for taking care of him while I was gone," she said to the workers, her voice full of gratitude. "I can't imagine how he must have seemed to you. I'm so sorry for not being able to get back sooner." Sarah, now wiping away her own tears, smiled softly. "He's been waiting for you every day. And I think he knew you'd be back." Michael nodded in agreement. "There's something about dogs. They never forget. And neither do we." The woman slowly made her way toward the exit, the dog by her side. The station seemed quieter somehow, but it was a peaceful quiet. A stillness filled with understanding, and the knowledge that love had once again triumphed over time and distance. As the woman and her dog walked away from the train station, hand in paw, Sarah and Michael stood there, their hearts heavy with emotion. They had witnessed something extraordinary, something that could never be explained by logic or reason. The dog had taught them a lesson in loyalty, love and hope, lessons they would carry with them for the rest of their lives. And as they turned to continue their work, they couldn't help but smile, knowing that the bond between a dog and his owner was far greater than they could have ever imagined.